Welcome to the Chamber of Chills. A little while back we had a talk with Adam Fortier from the Macroverse and Authentic Editions. It was all about how they were set to reprint a series of classic comics trying to get as close to the original printing process as possible. And the launch was going to be with pre-code horror. It was on Kickstarter. There were a whole bunch of different packages you could get. You could get what was called the Frightening 15, which was like some key issues. You could also get entire runs of certain comics. And one of them was the Chamber of Chills. This was a special thing that was through the Kickstarter, and it's to showcase some of the Chamber of Chills stories. Now, when it comes to pre-code horror, one must remember that horror was one of the hardest hit genres when it came to the crackdown of the Comics Code Authority, following the moral panic, Senate hearings, and underhanded shenanigans that preceded its creation. Well, today I have something to show you, and it is Chamber of Chills Annual #1. Now, this annual is a compilation of several different Chamber of Chills stories from across the various comics, and then it also has reprints of some of the ads and some of the prose and some of the music that would be included. They're little rhymes that you can read. It also came with a code so that you could get a copy of the digital edition, so we shall have even more things to look at. It is 64 pages and it's a lot of fun, and I thought it would be cool to go through it and just give an update, show how it looks, how it turned out. If you've been following this channel for a while, you know I'm all about the preservation and the living history of comics, and pre-code horror is such a fascinating part of that journey because it pioneers so many of the things that are now staples in the horror genre. So I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and let's get spooky, nay, chilling. Also, ignore my voice. Still sick, time of recording. But first, before we get into it, let's give some history on the Chamber of Chills. Now, Chamber of Chills was the name of 2 comic book series, and for our purposes, we need the first, which was published by Harvey Publications, or Harvey Comics. It was 10 cents, it ran for 26 issues bi-monthly from 1951 to 1954, so crushed by the code, which was put into full effect in 1954. And ultimately, the book would end up being canceled. It would try and change its name, but that wouldn't really work, but the company itself would just pivot towards kids comics, like Richie Rich. Chamber of Chills #7 was actually mentioned directly in Seduction of the Innocent, the book by Frederick Wortham, which was part of what caused the moral panic surrounding comic books. Now, in all fairness to the concerns surrounding comics in that era, while a lot of it is blown out of proportion and twisted and hyped up for various purposes, if one just looks at some of the Golden Age comics, their covers, and for some of their contents, some of them are going quite hard in terms of gore and violence, so it's not coming entirely out of nowhere in terms of the idea that some of these comics are pushing the envelope a little bit. So in general, a rating system may not have been amiss, but the code is so much more than that. It's fairly censorious, which has led to its own fascinating effects. It impacted the entire industry. We live in its wake. Oh, to peer into the parallel earth where it never was. So with all that said, I wanted to kind of go through some of the stories that are in here, where they come from, give a little bit of a snippet of what they're like. We're going to get a tiny bit spoilery, but not entirely. And I'm going to be focusing on these straight up comic stories, not the little prose shorts or the little ditties, although there are some of the little songs in there that did make me laugh. From the chilly chamber music, songs from the spook box. Also, the ads are just fun to look at. Some of them I wish you could still get. Look at these 90s. Now, the first story is Black Passion, which is from Chamber of Chills issue 19. That's the issue that has arguably the most well-known cover. And this cover, just in general, it is very cool. It's been homaged. Now, this issue was originally published in 1953. Black Passion is a short 5-page story, and it's an ironic tale about a man who does not appreciate his wife and would rather be at the club, and it has some language that works well at the time, but also if you read it through a modern linguistic lens, or rather a contemporary linguistic lens, it has another layer that adds an amusing factor to it. My name's Jason Wilton. I'm a guy who would spend 8 hours every day in a stuffy office. Naturally, I wanted to pass my evenings in a gay atmosphere, but my wife Elvira had different ideas. What makes you think candles on the table will substitute for a nightclub? I'm going out. Jason! So Jason Wilton decides he's gonna live his best life and Elvira can just deal with it. So he starts going to his gentleman's club, he stays out all hours, he just does what he wants. And eventually he begins having an affair. An affair that leads to disastrous and ironic results. This one has a twist you can see coming from fairly far away, and it would have been fairly obvious at the time too, but it is very fitting. And it's pretty satisfying because this story is told in the first person from Jason's perspective, and he's fairly unlikable, and he's meant to be. And so it's a little bit extra delicious when you see what's happening, which is what do you think happens when you leave someone just at home and neglect them all the time. Now, it can be hard to track down credits in some of these Golden Age stories, but some have the artist for this one as Jack Sparling. Now, the next tale is The Shrunken Skull, and it's from Chamber of Chills #5 from 1952. And it's a very different tale. This one's about Michael Stearns. He spends $25 on a mystery box at an auction. Into his apartment, Michael Stearns carried the small box, little knowing the unearthly horror of its contents. Slowly, he unwrapped it. $25? When will I stop being a sucker for these get-rich-quick schemes of mine? Now, inside the box is a shrunken head. And it's not just any shrunken head, it's that of an evil priestess, whose magic was freaking her village out so much they had her killed. But she cursed them. Now, the head promises Michael Stearns all kinds of riches, but first it needs a body. And I mean, he did spend $25. That's $301 and about 70 cents today in 2025. And so he goes out and beheads some poor woman, and there's this turn of phrase as he's doing it that I really like. Waiting, Michael discovers his beautiful victim, and with the stealth of a crazed werewolf, his greedy eyes watch her walk before him. The phrase stealth of a crazed werewolf, I love it. He does behead this woman, and some of the panels of him carrying the bloody, dripping, headless corpse, it's a lot. Him plopping the shrunken head onto it. It's both horrifying and at times humorous in a kind of macabre way. This trip, as one can imagine, does not go well for Michael, especially after he has a change of heart after he sees the witchcraft in action when she gets back to the village and raises them from the dead. That's when he realizes that she is evil. It wasn't when she asked him to murder a woman for her body. No, this is too far. I mean, skeleton armies are a lot. He tries to turn against her, which does not go well for him. And the moral of the story is, don't buy mystery boxes. The art in this one is by Bob Powell. Now the next story is Nose for News, and it's from issue 21, so a late outing from 1954, and it's also the cover story. This one is about a washed up alcoholic reporter called Clayton, who barges into the editor's office where he used to work saying that he's got the best scoop and he's gonna wanna listen to him and he's gonna get his job back and everything. Only it's being told in the first person, so the scoop is about him. Now, not to bury the lead, but this one was personally my least favorite of the bunch, just because the twist at the end as Clayton tries to commit the perfect murder at his job, where he's an assistant at a wax museum, where he feels he's not getting enough respect. It's just a bit of an odd one, or I found it to be so. And the story definitely could have made more use of the wax statues. Although there is some excellent uses of shadows in this one. There are some standout panels of Clayton as he flees the perfect murder scene. So for this to explain why it didn't really land for me, I am going to say what the twist was. Spoilers for a story from 1954. It's that he's telling this tale about this perfect murder, only he was not the murderer, he was the murder victim. Dun, dun, dun. The art for this one is by Manny Stellman and John Giantis on inks. Now the next one is Dust Unto Dust, and it's from issue 23 from 1954, which has quite the fire cover of this zombie trying to make out with a woman. There's just something really intense about the way she's trying to get him off the clothes or just decomposing off of him. This is another short story and has art credited to Howard Nostrand. It's a very atmospheric piece, and the art goes a long way to selling this gloomy, oppressive atmosphere. It's just a bit creepy. It has this desolate kind of energy of decay, and it's a bit more of a psychological type of piece. It has this kind of dreamlike quality to it, a rather nightmare quality. The story opens with Simon Loxley rising from the grave and going out to seek someone. It turns out that the zombie is hunting his murderer, who really did do it because he's not surprised to see him and just turns around and is like, "You were dead?" He's there to tell him that it's his time to die. And there's just something about this one, about how the zombie just keeps coming and there is an inevitability to it, because it's really trying to get through a kind of psychological message on top or underneath, which is basically the idea that if someone kills, in a way they're already dead. And the last panels of this protagonist as he's taken to his inevitable fate are really striking. This one's worth it for the art alone. Now the next one, The Inside Man, is also from issue 21. And this one is really well done, which may sound odd as a description when I get into what it's about, just because this kind of topic would probably not be just put into a short story or even a horror short story time of recording, but we'll see what you think. It's about these two doctors who are essentially working at a concentration camp where they're running experiments on political prisoners to try and prove there's life after death. This is by killing somebody and then reviving them shortly afterwards, and they're going to ask, "What'd you see?" This one had some really standout facial expressions. The beads of sweat, praise light in the eyes of the man they do successfully revive. It really draws you in and has a decent and fairly funny twist, even though it does end a bit abruptly because this is one of those 5-page ones. The art in this is also by Howard Nostrand. Also, my favorite chilly chamber music thing followed it. A biscuit, a basket, a green and yellow casket. I brought a package to my darling, but on the way I dropped it. I don't know, I just like the image of the ghost at the end. The next one was my personal favorite. It's The Vault of Living Death from Chamber of Chills number 2, which is also number 22 from 1951. So when the series first started, it took over the numbering of a previous series, which was not uncommon at the time. So it picked up from where that one left off, but then it reset the numbering. Now Now, when it comes to this story, just everything about it, the whole setup is creepy. There are layers of horror in this one. It starts off with some gravediggers who they've been tasked with relocating the cemetery to the outskirts of town. So they have to unearth the graves, the corpses, move them over. And as they're doing this, they discover a mausoleum. And when they go inside, they see that someone inside was buried alive because they just find his skeleton at the door. He's trying to get out. And they see that with some of his last strength, he's managed to write this testimony. They find these really old, crumpled papers. Buried alive in this vault with no hope of escape. My only ambition is to remain alive long enough to recount the evil of my last year of life and to give an account of my glorious and life-giving discovery, bragging even in my death note. So you see in the flashback that this man was a doctor working on the first successful anesthetic. But when his research assistant wants credit, doesn't even want credit, but just says, hey, our discovery, that's too much for him and he needs to die. So when they're going to test the anesthetic out on a human, he rigs it so that the assistant is the one who has to do it and then kills him with their very invention. What follows is a very Telltale Heart type of piece, but there are some little additions to it that make it stand out. For one thing, instead of the beating of the hideous heart, there's this zombie apparition. This one is cool because it's straddling the psychological and the grotesque. And there's genuine horror to the time the story takes to let you sit with the doctor in the tomb as he wastes away, just getting gaunter and gaunter. There's one panel of him licking the walls to try and get some moisture, just prolong his life just a tiny bit more. It's pretty intense. And this one has a really good twist ending that lands because it's really realistic and really subtle. You know, sometimes with those twists, they feel like they're just there to be shocking or they're really trying very hard. This one, it really adds to it. It's understated, and that makes the story scarier. Also, the decision the gravediggers make about the anesthetic formula, it's interesting. It makes you think, although the story does just present it as if they made the right choice. This one has art by Vic Donahue. Now, the last comic contained in here is Heartline. It's the opening story from the already mentioned issue 23, and it's where the title on the cover is coming from. All the context of what's going on there inside the story, it's different. Now, this is one I have to say in terms of the reprint that this was the only one where I wish it had been more vibrant. And it is very vibrant already, but this story just happens to have been taken and singled out and reprinted a bunch of different places as well because it's been deemed significant. And so in some of those, the blood is just really, really red, and the redness of the blood is a kind of key part of the story. But that's not to say this one doesn't still look really good. And the story itself turns a nice phrase. It's just very arresting. This is the heart. This is the girl. These are my hands. We open on a doctor who's clearly in the mad phase of his career as he's trying to bring his fiancée back to life. This is Lawrence Romaine, a doctor who had discovered a revolutionary way to remove a diseased organ and replace it with another from the organ bank, and all this in record time, 1 hour. But as he celebrates this triumph, the love of his life dies of a heart attack, and so he swears that he will dedicate all his time to bringing her back. And so the rest of the story is just these obsessive panels of him working on this heart to try and get the heart to the right level. His notes of the dates of what he's doing to the ventricles and how he's infusing it and how the revival process is going. And for this one, we do need to discuss the twist because it has a very striking end line that stands out, even if what it's attached to is a little bit out of left field. He manages to get Suzanne revived, and she does look pretty messed up, but he still thinks she's beautiful. It's a nice little detail. Only she doesn't come to him, but instead goes to the somehow reanimated corpse of the man whose heart she has been given. And so it has this line, the heart still loves its body, which is such a fire last line. Also, Lawrence low-key cured death. He's an amazing doctor. This one also has Manny Stallman art with the same inker. It does have this fairly tense, tight narration, a nice little twist on the kind of Frankenstein story. As for the Chamber of Chills annual, this little compilation, it's a lot of fun, and it does showcase some of the range that the Chamber of Chills series could have. I do wish that it had a little bit of an index page or something that showed where the stories came from, but its whole goal is to try and be like an authentic old magazine with the way that it's laid out and everything. It is really fun to see the old ads and the prose stories. It's also just a solid and sturdy print, so you feel like it's gonna last for a little bit. And the colors and the shading in the reprint are very consistent throughout. If you go and compare them to some of the better scans that exist out there, it really holds up. It looks good. I'm all into things that are trying to preserve as many comics as possible, especially pre-code and the golden age. There's just a uniqueness to that era. And now some of it maybe is familiar. That's because many of these things are setting up the benchmarks. So it's really cool to look back at them. So yeah, I just wanted to give you a little bit of that, some history of Chamber of Chills in general. The second Chamber of Chills was a Marvel series. Are you a fan of pre-code horror? Horror comics in general? What are some of your faves? Sharing is caring, so put it all down below. While you're down there, please all YouTube things like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some Saturday spent discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.